physically controlling something in a game. I lost the video here, by the
I
way.
turned it off just for a few minutes so it could unlag itself, but I will turn it back on now.
Ah, that's cool.
Okay.
So yeah. Anyway, so I just thought that that was interesting and fascinating, and that direction led me to writing Principles of Virtual Sensation, which was an article that was published in Kama Sutra and on my website. And I basically just tried to sort of one-to-one map it across and find what would be the principles of virtual sensation, as I was calling it then. And then somebody saw that at Morgan Kaufman, and they were like, "Hey, that's cool. Want to write a book?" And I was like, "Sure, sounds good." Not knowing, not fully appreciating the horrible pain it is to write a book.
It seems like a large scope of work. I don't know how long the actual book was. I was kind of just flipping through it on Amazon. Although I did learn the word haptics, which I thought was interesting and educational.
There
Um,
you go.
yes, and
Yeah, so it's 160,000 words, I think.
mm, okay. And how long did it take you to write
So
that
that's
thing?
it's like 2 years, something like that.
Okay.
I
I
just couldn't believe how much work it was. I mean, I thought like, oh, I've written a 50-page paper before. It's just like six of those, and that took me, like a month to write. So it'll be like 6 months. Mm-mm. Nope. Actually, a couple of friends of mine were just working on a book right now, and they're like, hey, what do you think of the abstract? And I was like, you must not agree to write a book. It's a terrible idea. It's just gonna crush you. And just a couple of months ago, they were like, "Yeah, you were totally right. We're probably not gonna finish it."
uh, the response seems to be good. I mean, they're actually using us as curriculum, I believe, for schools and game design. So that must be sort of, I guess, affirming to know that other people are looking at your stuff as a teaching tool that's kind of helping future generations learn how to do games well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the impetus to write it, right? Like, you don't write a book about game design if you're trying to be rich. That's not a thing. Right? That's If that's what motivates you, fine. Go write a self-help book or whatever it is. Um, Write fiction about young adult vampire or werewolf teens or something.
That
But
design games.
yeah, the design games. Hey, that's not bad actually. Um,
Some of the ideas in the book looked like I was interested in the idea of fast game response and polish, basically determining how successful your game is, and your definition of what you would consider polish, if that's like immersion of disbelief or what you consider polish.
oh well, so polish has a very specific definition in the book. Everything has a very specific definition in the book, just because I thought like I needed to be really, really precise about definitions, even if later on I kind of like ended up wanting to change some of that stuff. But polish in the book basically means anything in a game which lends the impression of a physical nature to the objects in the world, like a spray of particles or the thing jiggling when it hits something else. But actually, if you took those things away, it would not change the underlying functionality of the game at all. It's things that are primarily inserted to change your perception of things in the world. So I had this example of like two balls that hit each other. You can like drag them together and whack them together, and if you just do it without any effects, they feel really like lifeless, and they're like styrofoam or something. And then if you do them with jiggle, then they sort of start to come alive, and then you do it with like spray of particles and dust and so on, and then it's like all of a sudden it really feels like these are two like rocks banging together or something like that.
I see. I would
But,
assume, though, based on that, that this would be kind of an easier thing to achieve, maybe in a first-person game or something. It would be more difficult in a turn-based, sort of looking down on it kind of game because you're not actually in the middle of all these events that are happening and all the effects that can be determined. So something like SimCity, how would that be still successful and allow you to have that polish that you're talking about?
well, in SimCity, it's things like little particles that get kicked up from the road or the tires of the cars, and it's a lot more subtle in things like SimCity. But if you look at something like the new XCOM, that has a ton of awesome polish in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think actually, rather than polish, I think what I would call it now is juice, juiciness.
Ooh,
That's what seems to be convergent. What people seem to be converging on as far as game designers calling it something.
okay. Then how does
Um,
everyone explain Minecraft?
oh, dude, Minecraft is super juicy. Like the way that the blocks explode and like
Explode.
the sound that it makes when you hit and stuff.
I see. So it's not necessarily realism or trying to
The
get you
other
to
thing,
feel like in real life that this would happen. It's more just
oh yeah, no, no, no. Actually, I
subjective.
think that realism. realism can really bite you in the ass, actually, and that's one of the main points I make in the book. Realism can bite you in the ass if you set up expectations in the player's mind that things will behave a certain way with the look of it. So if you make a photorealistic human being and then their face moves like a weird animatronic burn victim, then you know you're way worse off than if you just made them look cartoony because you can manage that and you can actually do animations that will read well.
I noticed that
I mean
in
that
some like
that's sort of
Fallout stuff.
yeah. Oh, Fallout is terrible. I don't know who they have directing characters there, but they need to fire that person and hire whoever did the characters for Eve or whatever,
I see.
or the character for like Walking Dead. Walking Dead is a great example.
Oh,
Like,
I hear really good things about that. I think it's like on sale for $10 now. Episode 1 and 2, which I definitely need to. I think episode 1's free, and episode 2 is like $10 on Steam or something. I need to look.
yeah, I have not looked lately. This okay, so this is a thing made by my friend Martin and my friend Petri.
Hmm.
Martin is working on this really neat game called Boombaepsilon, and Petri was the guy who made Crayon Physics, and he's working on this like crazy, amazing wizard game thing. But anyway, this is a great example of juice. So if you get a chance to play around with that, I don't appear to be able to paste things into the Twitch stream. It kind of glitched out of me. Oh,
That's
there it
okay.
goes.
I'm streaming it for you.
There we go. I can type stuff in there now. Nice.
This is like
So anyway, you
Pong. What's
can.
happening here?
Okay, so this is Pong. So over on the left-hand panel there are a bunch of controls, and you can start to turn on the juice effects.
Okay.
So hit escape to bring up the menu.
I don't think I
You're
can.
clicking it. Maybe not.
No, they can look. It's like clearly marked, and I'll.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you can hit escape, and you can bring up the menu, and then you can just start turning on juice effects. So it's like jiggle for the tiles, jiggle for the balls. Tiles explode when they get hit with particles and so on. And no functionality will ever change of the game at all at any time, and all of a sudden the game will feel amazing. And like the little paddle gets eyes and gets all anthropomorphized, and it feels amazing.
Cool. All right. Well, I linked it for the chat so they can do their own thing there.
Ooh, I think that my friend Sven just posted a video. Yep, there you go. Yeah. So Martin and Petri gave a talk about juice, and this is like their example that they use, and it's the best one out there that it illustrates it really well. It's awesome.
Nice. Okay. So.
So we're still working our way through my life story, I thought.
Yes, we are. We are. So, when did you get asked to speak at conventions and public events? And is that after the authorship?
No, that was just kind of always a thing that happened. I've always just been magically good at speaking publicly, and it's just the thing that I have that's nice that I can do that other people kind of have trouble with. Um, and so I try to speak a lot just because it's something I can do pretty well. And I teach and I've taught for 7 years or something like that. And so I have spoken at various conferences and I've spoken at lots of different schools and stuff like that. And then a few years ago, 6 years ago now, actually, I think, my friend Simon Carlos, who used to run the Game Developers Conference and is now, I don't even know what, global brand director or something for UBM.
Wow.
He was like, "Hey, Steve and Matthew, you guys want to help co-chair the IGF, the Independent Games Festival, and you want to help me organize this Independent Game Summit thing that I'm putting together?" And we're like, "Sweet, sounds good." And so we put it together, and every year we assemble the speakers and the topics, and we get up there and MC it and kind of go over everything. And it's fun and cool. We added Kelly Santiago from formerly of
Oh,
that
yes,
game.
Journey.
Yeah, man, this year was crazy, right?
I know. I'm glad that game company is really nice. I liked them since Flower, and I'm glad that they finally got the attention they deserve with Journey.
Yeah, but I mean, what's crazy about that is, okay, so I mean, I've been going to GDC since 1999, and I remember the first experimental gameplay workshop, and I remember when John and Chris Hecker showed up at GDC, and they had this crazy talk, and they were like, "We invented this thing called game jams. Like, that's a thing now." And at that time, it was all sequels and all shoot 'em ups, and it was just everything looked really bad for the industry, and they just totally had this huge impact on the indie scene. Like, I went to the very first IGF ceremony. It was in the hallway.
Oh, wow.
And the company that won was 4 students who had made a 3D RTS game, and it was just like, oh my god, these students, they're not game industry people, and they made a game? Are you serious? Wow, let's reward that. And the name of that company was Vicarious Visions.
Okay,
So
so it's grown a
so
bit.
it, yeah, and they became quite a large company after that. Um, but so then out of nowhere, this indie scene has just really blossomed, and it seems like there's just exponentially more amazingly talented people every year. And then this year it was like we had two IGF festivals, right? It was we did the normal IGF, and then 9 out of the 11 games that were awarded by the Game Developers Choice Award, which is supposedly voted by mainstream industry people or anyone in the game industry, were like indie titles or indie inspired kind of stuff like Journey. So it was just crazy because to me that says that we have arrived. It's now no longer the mainstream industry and the indies. It's like we're all together now, and people really care about indie games, and they're a vital part of the medium, and they've sort of crossed over, and it's really weird and crazy that that happens. But like now, where do we go? Because if Journey wins everything over all the AAA indies, like no Call of Duties one and no,
Right. But
what
don't you
does
think
that?
that makes the standard of excellence based on the game and not necessarily based on the sales?
Oh yeah, absolutely, and that's what's really heartening about it. It's like wow, so Antichamber sat at number one on Steam for a couple of weeks, right? I'm like, wow, holy crap, people have taste now. Like, what's going on?
Yes. Yes. Okay.
And FTL and stuff like that. Like, I was super pleased to see that. But it just felt like this crazy tipping point year where now all of a sudden what we do is no longer this niche thing. It's kind of the big deal thing now.
Mm-hmm.
And so do we still do an IGF festival if all the games that are going to be awarded in the Game Developers Choice Awards are, I don't know, it's crazy.
Yeah. What's your new category for creative startups, basically? Hmm.
But it's just been fascinating to be at every one of these GECs and see, you know, basically a very small minority within the game industry turn and really make it totally different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Hmm.
It's
There's,
been fun to watch.
it seems like there's a lot that's changing in the industry as far as people getting very frustrated with costs of the big game developers and things like that, and I guess turning towards maybe the less expensive, really creative games. I think there's a lot of changes coming, so we'll see. We'll see, like you said, what happens in the future as far as Kickstarters, as far as indie gaming and people's, I guess, acceptance of it or welcoming, embracing of it.
Well, it's
But
fascinating to me that something like FTL can be so successful because it's not as though people haven't been making spaceship games for 30 years.
mm-hmm.
And it's not as though people haven't been making spaceship like bridge simulator games and but they just found that right combination, and it's not like the graphics are particularly sophisticated. In fact, they're very crude and retro by the standard of something like BioShock Infinite or these other games that are coming out. But
Right.
what's fascinating is that good gameplay will out, right? I mean, FTL was like a virus that spread through every major game studio, from what I understand. Like everyone played it.
If you
Everyone.
apply the principles in your game feel book to FTL or something, can you see like a clear delineation where you say, this game is successful because it tick 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 tick, and you can tick them off? What do you think made it so very viral?
Well, FTL is sort of, I mean, it has good usability, and it's not really particularly about game feel at all. And you don't really real time control anything particularly. So it's not, it's like you don't have that sensation where you're like steering something. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say it's just the way the elements are all put together. I mean, it has a lot of sort of board gaminess to it, but all the elements that they chose to make real time really make the game feel more stressful, more interesting, and more like to to succeed at that game. It's all about like you know shutting off the oxygen so that you guys are all slowly asphyxiating, so you can get more power to the shields for that one moment when their missile is coming in and so on. Their one laser is coming in, or whatever. I don't know. It's just it sort of trade offs the game. Like it's very board gamey in that respect, but it's just extremely well executed. They gave a wonderful talk at the Independent Game Summit this year. I was really happy because they wanted them to speak at the main conference. They were trying, like, hey, let's slot them into the main conference because all these mainstream devs like them, and they were like, no, we want to speak at the indie conference because that's kind of where we got started. I was like, yes, awesome. Um, as an organizer of that, but they gave this wonderful talk, and it was kind of like everything went better than expected. Like but the motif that was running underneath it was we were extremely careful about scope, and at every